Welcome to The Table, the podcast where we share real stories, struggles, and victories as we walk together in faith. I love the start of something new. Well, this kind of new thing. Today is the first of several conversations about seasons. There are so many people I know and love walking through various seasons. Some are preparing to say goodbye to loved ones. Some are starting their own homeschooling journey. Some are learning to navigate new boundaries in a relationship. Some have just welcomed home a new baby. Some are sending their baby off to school. Some are relearning how to find their joy in Jesus. I think you get it. Many different seasons. So, join us as we talk about why we go through seasons and what they mean to us. Grab a friend, hop in the car, or throw on your headphones and come to the table with us.
Hi, Jenna.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. What's happening in the Johnson household this week?
Everybody's somewhere. Everybody's got a practice. Everybody's got a something.
Okay, right now in this moment, how many different places are there Johnson family members?
Three, four different places currently.
hmm Have y'all had dinner yet?
Nope. That's why I'm late getting to
Nope.
you because I had to put it in the instant pot.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I'm glad we could get together today. We've been planning for this for several weeks. And so I'm excited to finally get to have this conversation. And we are kicking off a new series. We just finished the summer series, and then we had a couple of episodes in there just to talk about it, talk about life. And now we get to start this new series, and we're talking about seasons. It's really funny because right before we started the summer series, we talked about seasons and changing seasons from spring to summer and from in school to out of school and, routines to a free for all as the summer sometimes brings. And so when this was on my heart, it was just funny to me that that's how we left the last season too. Like thinking about all of the different seasons that the Lord brings us through. What are your initial thoughts about talking through the seasons?
I'm somewhat excited for it because it's God's timing. It's perfectly laid out. I'm excited to think about the different seasons that we walk through and the ways that God has um, established His order.
Yeah, me too. For all of our listeners, this is loosely based off of, it's not loosely, it's based off of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and there's 8 or 9 verses, I don't remember honestly, that talk about different seasons. So today we're just going to do an introduction to this topic, to these upcoming topics, and then every week for the next several weeks we'll talk about a different pairing of seasons, and a lot of them are opposites. So the next one we're going to do is beginnings and endings, or birth and death. And so as you think about seasons, what does a time for everything under the sun, which is what Ecclesiastes starts with, what does that mean to you in your walk right now?
Well, it means two separate things to me is that God has established order in the seasons and our times and the way the moon rises and the sun rises. And He's already established all those things. We have no control over them. They are all in His will and all in His hands. And I think it's interesting how we take the word seasons that we go through. Well, in Tennessee, you go through about a million in one
Oh,
season.
goodness. Yeah, we
Um,
had fake fall last week.
right. So, and today it's burning up hot.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's interesting how we take the word seasons that happen, supposed to be 4 different seasons in a year around here, but we also take that word to mean like our periods of experience, different seasons we walk through, and it's very literal in the sense that we walk through summer, spring, winter, and fall, but also, and I got those way out of order, but that's okay. Um, maybe there's a point to that too. But we also experience different seasons in our life, and God has a purpose even in those. And I just think when he says there is a time for everything, you can expect to experience a little bit of it all.
Yeah, as I was studying for seasons, I came across the verse. I really hope, yeah, this is today. Yeah, I came across the verse in Genesis, and this is like the literal seasons. This is after the flood, and in Genesis 8:22, it says that while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. So it's like a promise from the Lord that these seasons will continue,
Mhm.
which makes me think that they might have had a reason to worry that they might not continue. And so he's saying, nope, as long as the earth is here, this is how things will continue in this certain pattern. And so I think it's funny that we talk about our life experiences in kind of the same way because I have not gone back to count, but I'm almost positive I say the word season like 6 times in every episode from the very beginning. We just use it a lot, that terminology a lot to refer to our situations. And when I was thinking about this, I think what really put this on my heart is that as I'm around different people, and I have lots of people in my community that are in varying seasons. Some are in really hard transitions. Some are in seasons that feel stagnant and they feel discouraged. And so I think the way we consider others might change if we had just a little bit of insight into the season that they're in. It helps us pray for them and it helps us love on them a little bit better if we know and realize and appreciate where people are. And we've been talking about that for forever, right?
Mhm. Yep.
So, this idea of seasons, I was listening to a podcast. Imagine that. And the author of I don't know if it was a book or I don't know what it was, talked about how seasons are markers. Like they're like a stake in the sand that mark these moments in our life and these events in our life. And as believers, they can be a sign of God's established order, just like they are in nature, or of his faithfulness to us. Like I stick a stake in the ground in this hard time and I look back and remember that he was faithful and he never changes. I know that about his character. So then when I walk through whatever the next season holds, I can go back to that marker and say, the Lord was faithful then and he'll be faithful now. But I don't think that's a cultural um, concept that people agree on right now. I think right now we're very much, I don't want to wait through anything. I don't want to sit in a difficult, I don't personally, but we don't want to sit in difficult times. We just want to move to the next thing, that the next mountain, if you will, that feels good and where things are all sorted out. So, talk to me about the idea of seasons versus my flesh wanting instant gratification. I want change today. I want this to be fixed today.
I think it's important to remember again that there is an established order to things, and that God, in His purpose and in His perfect timing, has established that order for our good, for our growing, and for us to learn to trust in Him. And it for also for his glory. Let me go back to that too. So for our good, for growth, and for his glory. I think we live in a day and age, and I'm now that I'm in my 40s, I have seen it change so much where I didn't even have a phone when I was a kid. That was not even a thing. We had a dial-up computer when I got in high school. That was the first time we had a computer, and it was dial-up internet, and you had to wait for it to get where it needed to be to do anything. To today, where everything is in an instant. Any news, any information, any help with a school question or project, it's at your fingertips. And I don't know that that's a good thing because it's kind of made us less dependent on the Lord, and it's made us not want to wait. It has caused us to want everything as soon as we can get it. And that sometimes delayed gratification is a good thing for us. And the Lord knows it. Why? Which is why He's established order and periods of time and seasons that we walk through. And there's so many different types. Like if you hear the word, a Christian use the word seasons, it can be, joy or suffering. It could also be like, I'm in a season of life where I have toddlers, or this person is, has an empty nest, or maybe they're retired. There's different seasons of our life, but then there's seasons where, and I've noticed it often in my lifetime, um, seasons where we're really in tune with the Lord, and sometimes we can't even hear Him at all. And I think that I am slowly and still learning that there's importance for every one of those seasons, and He has a purpose in them. And yes, I would prefer that we walk through each thing quicker than we do sometimes. Sometimes those long seasons are good for me and they bring glory to the Lord. And so, who am I to question how long something takes? This instant gratification, yeah, I love it when I can order food on an app. But in real life, sometimes the Lord needs those longer, delayed gratification for me so that I can learn to lean on Him and trust Him more. Because if He gives it to me immediately, then I'm going to quickly turn away from Him and think that I can do everything on my own. And I can't.
I think that's so good. And you mentioned several like key points or like foundational truths that you have to believe if you're going to listen to these conversations with us. Because
Mhm.
if you don't have if you don't believe the foundation, that's going to be really hard for you to believe
Right.
the truth about seasons. And some of those things are that God loves us.
Hmm.
He loves me. He wants my good, and not in the way that I consider my good, but in his perfect way. He loves me. I can't lose sight of that as I go through different seasons. I also have to believe that he is all knowing and that he is working all of these things together, just like you said, for his glory and for my ultimate good. Even if I don't understand it, because there's not really anything about understanding in some of these promises, right? It's just about leaning into him and obeying where he leads us. And I I think today you're right. We have such a focus on instant gratification, and Amazon has ruined me of that, right? If I forget to order something, it can be here tomorrow, and I don't have to deal with the consequences and wait a week to get it the next time I go to the
But we're
store.
also we're also so spoiled. I don't know about you, but Amazon has been going through a few day period where it's not getting here next day or it's not getting here when it says, and I'm so frustrated with them and I'm like, do I need it that badly? If I need it that badly, Walmart's down the road, but I don't want to
I
take the
know.
time. I just feel like we've gotten in our culture, our society, I'm not even sure how you say that, but we as a most of us in this area, I don't know, use that instant gratification and we expect it. And it's almost like we're lost without it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think there's so many different areas of my life where I see that. I see that in my kids too
Right.
now.
Yeah.
And it is just the reality of culture today. But why do you think, like, what's the value of not always getting what you want exactly when you want it? What does that do for us
Um,
spiritually?
well, let me just flip right over to the verse that I pointed out. I wasn't ready for it, but I know exactly where it is. It is in Romans chapter 5. And I think it's not specifically talking about this, but well, yeah, it is. It's Romans chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. And we're talking about being justified by the blood of Christ. But he says, therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom we also have access by faith into grace wherein we stand and rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. And here's where this right here answers your question. Not only so, but we glory in tribulations, also knowing that tribulation works patience, and patience works experience, and experience works hope. And hope makes us not ashamed. And I think delayed gratification gives us time to work through tribulations or the seasons that we're walking through so that we learn patience and that we grow in patience. And when we grow in patience, that's going to work out experience, and we're going to learn experience and wisdom in that. And then it says it's going to work from experience comes hope. And so that when we go through difficult things and difficult seasons, we have hope. And that is our grounding force when things don't seem right or when things are not working the way that we were expecting them to. Our hope makes us not ashamed. Our hope is in Jesus. And so I think that delayed gratification is only for our good. When God doesn't answer right away, there is a reason for it. And we have to trust that He is waiting to answer because it's for our good and for His glory.
I think that's so good. I have almost a quote exactly like that written on my paper, and you just said it so well. Our hope is Jesus, and because of Jesus and those truths that I just talked about, we can have hope through whatever season that we're going through, that He's gonna be with us and that He'll be faithful to bring us through to the next one.
And let me ask you this, and I may be the only one that thinks this way, but like, when has waiting ever brought about something bad for you? I mean, waiting for me has always brought about the right answer. It has brought about the Lord and His wisdom. And sometimes it wasn't what I was expecting or wanting, but it was better. It didn't seem that way, especially when I was younger. But over and over in the Bible, God and His Word talks about those that wait, and that there are blessed are those who wait for Him. And let us not grow weary nor without, and because in due season we will reap if we don't give up. Don't give up. That's like waiting
Yeah.
on Him and knowing, trusting that He's going to answer. He's going to show up. It may not be in the time that we want, but in His purpose and in His timing, He will show up and He will answer. And I have never received anything bad from waiting. I've only learned to trust Him more and to lean on Him more and to pour into Him more and to get more focused on Him, because a lot of times that I want to wait and it hurry up, like if I say I'm going to wait, you're going to answer faster, right? Like you're going to show up.
Right.
But
Yeah.
sometimes that's not what He needs or wants for me. Sometimes I need to learn to wait because it's for my good.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, so I'm glad you said that. I haven't ever waited for something that didn't end up to be better for me than what I thought I wanted in the first place. But I also think waiting grows something in me. Like I think about when I was first married and Justin and I wanted our first house and we had to wait until we had worked a certain amount of time and had the money saved up, and it just felt like it took forever. It wasn't, we didn't enjoy it. We were ready to move on to the next thing. And then the Lord blessed that and He gave us we got a house. But I remember then, not long later, but a little bit later, having to, trying to start our family and having to wait to get pregnant, and it felt like it took forever, but I'd practiced waiting for our house. And I know it's not the same, and like there are bigger things that we wait for, but I could see in that moment how the waiting that seemed senseless to me, waiting to buy our first house, was helping prepare me for what it would feel like to be faithful while I was waiting for something that was more important to me, our
Hmm.
babies. And so, um, where is a time in your life that you realized that the waiting was preparing you for something different, something else?
There's been lots of times, definitely through my first year of marriage, we ended up getting pregnant and miscarried, but we also, through that first year of marriage, lost four different family members. And I just felt like there was no end to the sorrow and to the sadness and to the wait for joy. I know that sounds crazy, but I felt like we would get through one season of suffering just to get right back into another one. And then for us to miscarry, I was just like, what? How? Why? Why are we here? But I see that that made us stronger. That wait, that season of, I don't know if suffering, it was loss. That season of just loss after loss after loss, um, really taught me to trust his timing. And that if the Lord had not laid it on our hearts to get married within, I mean, we went from single to engaged in 8 days and married 2 months later. And if we had waited to get married and choose when we wanted to, we wouldn't have been together when all these things started happening, when we started losing loved ones. And his timing was so perfect that we could walk through those seasons of hard together. And then in losing our first baby, I almost feel like our hearts were just so, we were just in a season of loss. And so waiting for the happiness, I guess, I don't know if waiting for joy is the right wording, but when we finally were pregnant with our firstborn, it made sense. It made sense that his timing, he wanted us to get through all of that before he blessed us with a baby. And I understood it more. And so that was a big time of waiting. Another time of waiting was um, we've gone through seasons where the money wasn't there and waiting for the Lord to provide and not knowing how we were going to make it or how we were going to make the next step, to having just a few dollars in our account and the Lord showing up with a check in the mail from someone we could have never expected. He just does that for us so many times that those seasons and those periods of waiting are hard, and it's hard to see past them. But I have to go back to all those times where he showed up before. He's gonna show up.
Yeah. Okay. You could not have teed me up better for this, for my next like comment, I guess, as I was looking back through my notes this morning. I just struggle to remember. I struggle to, like, I go through these seasons, I get through them, and the Lord is so good to me. And then I hit the next one that's hard, and I'm like, oh goodness, what am I going to do? I struggle to remember. And there's this Ellie Holcomb song. I think it's Ellie Holcomb. I don't even know who else sings it, but it's just as good. And they use this word, Ebenezer. And this is in a story in First Samuel, but the word Ebenezer means stone of help. And when they like defeated someone, I don't know, and they like made this monument, and it was this stone, and they named it Ebenezer because the Lord helped them. And so it was like a reminder. They set that marker of that victory for them to look back and remember. And I just think, what are those stones in my life that serve to remind me of God's faithfulness in past seasons? And how can I plant those in my memory and really hold on to them so that when I hit the next season, good or bad, I remember his faithfulness. And I just thought it was sweet that all the way back then, however many thousands of years ago that story was, it was important that they mark it, that they put that stone on the ground to say, the Lord is faithful. He helped us. Because of him, we accomplished this. We won this war. We won this battle. Um, do you have any markers like that in your life? This is off the script. That serve to remind you of the Lord's faithfulness.
Physically, yeah, I look at my children. I look at my
Yeah,
children. Daniel is my firstborn. He is the marker that we walk through miscarriage. And
yeah.
God blessed us with this baby. And then the next marker would be Samuel, because Samuel came 13 months after Daniel. And I thought I could never do that. Looking back, I still don't know how we did it, but very quickly we had two babies under the age of 13 months. And um, those were markers in my big markers in my life. But then with Samuel, when Samuel was 5, um, I can remember the season of him being diagnosed with the Chiari brain malformation. And I'd never heard of that ever in my whole life. And I studied and studied and researched because I thought, I have to know what's going to happen to him. I have to know what to be prepared for. And I did all that studying and researching for my child 2 years later, for not even Samuel, but for our third son, Elias. And when Elias was 5, he underwent this he was diagnosed with Chiari and had a brain surgery. And that will always be a marker in my life as a time, sorry, where he proved his faithfulness. The Lord proved his faithfulness to me, that I had read and prepared, and he walked us through every step of that, as difficult as that season was. But the Lord had already prepared me. I already knew what was coming. I knew what the surgery would look like. I knew what the recovery process would look like, because he had marked that spot for me with Samuel, and yet I didn't even need it for Samuel. He prepared me for Elias. We miscarried after Elias, and I thought we would never be pregnant again. And then the Lord gave us Ezra. And Ezra came in a time where our life was just so hard. Um, Everything was just difficult with church and things of that nature, and a job, and just I was starting to homeschool, and it was just so much. And the Lord gave us Ezra, and he has his name because it means help. And we learned in that season with Ezra that we couldn't have gotten through life without the help of the Lord and our friends. I had broken my leg when I was pregnant with him, so I could barely move or do anything. Everyone had to help us, and I had to learn how to accept help. And so his name is a marker to me. When I look at him and I say his name, it is a reminder that the Lord gave him his name and taught us to accept and beg for help. And then we miscarried twice after Ezra. And I thought, I will never be pregnant again. This was it. And I loved that idea um, until we had Miss Jewel. And we never thought we'd get to have a girl, ever. And we had always said if we ever get to have a girl, we were going to name her after my grandfather, whose name was Jewel. But no one knew that his name was Jewel. He went by JT. And so we had told him, if we ever get to have a girl, we're going to name her Jewel. And but we never did. And so that idea just never came about. And then I miscarried twice, and I thought, I'm getting older. There's no way. And in God's infinite timing, and in the waiting and the season of hard of miscarrying back to back, he gave us Jewel at the perfect time. And Jewel Thomas, my grandfather, passed away before he could even meet her. But we got to tell him that we were going to name her after him. And so I look at each of my kids as big markers, but I have to also go back to the time when the Lord saved my soul. This is getting long, so forgive me. But I think there's so many markers, and my Nana, and she wrote markers in her Bible, like of memories of things that happened, and I loved that about her. So I'm noticing as I get older, I don't remember things as well. I need to write everything down. And I think there's a purpose and kind of I think it's important to do that because I don't just want these markers for myself. I want my kids, my grandkids, my great grandkids, their kids, whatever, to know that the Lord showed up for me and that He will show up for them. And I want them to see that. And if I don't write it down, if I don't put it in print or, somewhere, they will never know. And that's what I love so much about the Bible is that there's all these markers so that we can see them now and read about them now and share that with our children and our children's children for years to come. Because God put it in His Word, all these different markers to show that He is faithful and He will show up and provide every time.
That's exactly the very same logic that they had in the Old Testament and the New Testament, right? Like the whole point of that stone, the Ebenezer, was so that for generations to come they would remember the Lord's faithfulness and
Yeah.
that He helped them through. Um, I think so that's just so sweet. I hope you write that down. I guess we did just cement it because things never go away on the internet. But I hope that you write that down for your kids because I think that'll really be special to them one day to hear about the Lord's faithfulness and how each of them reminds you of that. You kind of hinted at this earlier, or you said something about this earlier, but a general thought I had about this season is that I can be going through lots of different seasons at one time. Like
Mhm.
right now, I'm going through a new season parenting, and it is uh, giving me a run for my money. It's a challenge every day, and I'm going through a growing season in my marriage. And this is a busy season. Like there are so many ways that I could describe the different aspects of my life and the way that the Lord is working in those times. And so it's not always just cut and dry. Like maybe I'm grieving a loss, but I'm also, making a transition in my parenthood or maybe I'm in a new job at work, but I'm also figuring out how to do something at home with my family. I don't know. I just think it's not simple, and that's what makes this a challenge sometimes is that we get focused on so many different things that it's hard to keep our eyes on the Lord and his faithfulness. But regardless, he will be faithful to carry us through, and we should go to him with all of these different seasons and all of the struggles and the celebrations that we get to experience in these times.
I think you have to look at every different season that you walk through with an eternal perspective. It's really easy to get caught up in those seasons of suffering or sickness or shame or guilt, all those different things that we walk through and forget the eternal perspective part that we don't walk this life without hope and that we don't have a Lord who is unchanging. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is not changing. And so, despite my life changing and going through different seasons, He stays the same. And if I can cling to that God, if I can cling to the God who is eternal, even when things aren't as they should be or when things are hard, if I can put my eyes on Jesus and let Him carry out all of these things for me and with me, then I think that would change the seasons that we're in. I think it would change so much about how we face them how we share them, how we look at them, and instead of getting in over our heads, it's all under his feet. He's got it. And I think I need that perspective that he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The days were already formed for me before I was even, when I was in my mother's womb, the Lord knew all about me. You look at Psalm 139 and are flabbergasted by how much he knew about me and how much he loved me and cared for me. And so why wouldn't he do that now? And I think we forget that when we get in these difficult, busy, hectic seasons of life, we're so focused on what's right here and now instead of looking eternally and looking to the author of our faith.
Uh, that is such a good point that there's eternal value in this. I heard this song recently. I don't even know what it is. If I find it, I'll put it in the show notes. But it has one line, and I'm pretty sure this line is in like 1,000 songs that I listen to, and it never struck me this way. But it says something about when I get to heaven and Jesus calls me by my name. And it just gave me like a new perspective that all this, the relationship between me and Jesus, I am saved. So that relationship will last forever. And I am either um I'm either investing in that. He's always investing in me. I'm either investing in it or I'm taking away from it based on what I'm going through in my life. And so there's eternal value to learning this, to building that relationship with him, to walking through these things with him, because that relationship is going to last you forever. And I can't say that about any of my other relationships, but I think it brings back this idea that in every season there's a purpose. So
Yes.
there's eternal value, but he has a purpose for us in all of the seasons that we walk through. None of it is wasted. And so that you talked about the hope that we have because of Jesus, and we can trust that he will use it for
Amen.
something. There is a purpose. He won't just let us walk through these hard times or the good times just because.
And
He's
just
weaving it all together.
and just remember it's not for us to know. It's it's
Yeah,
it's not for us to know. His word in Acts tells us that. In Acts chapter 1, it
yeah.
talks about it's not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power or his own authority. It's not for us to know what's ahead. All we can do is here and now, but look at it with an eternal perspective and trust that he's going to work everything out for our good.
I agree. I'm so excited to get to talk about these different kinds of seasons. Jenna, is there anything in your notes that we didn't talk about?
Nope.
I feel like you checked some of the things off of my list, so well done. We didn't prep this together at all, but isn't the Lord good? Okay, well, we will be back next week to talk about our first seasons. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for coming to the table. We hope today's conversation encouraged you as you seek Jesus in the big moments and the little ones. Check out the show notes for any scripture, resources, whatever we talked about today. Feel free to share this episode, leave a comment, ask a question, or share your thoughts with us. I typically don't leave a charge, quote unquote, for our listeners, but today I am. Think of someone who you think needs encouragement in their current season and send them this episode. Maybe it's someone who you wish you could say these things to, but you're just not comfortable yet. Maybe it's someone who you know they're about to go through something difficult and this conversation made you think of them. Maybe it's even your person, the one who challenges you to continue growing, continue learning, and continue trusting in the Lord. Send it to them. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If you haven't already, go follow us on socials to see all the things that we're sharing throughout the week. We'll see you next time.